You're listening to Releasing Trauma, a survivor's podcast. And now here's your host, Tracy Osborne. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, we are talking about using meditation instead of medication. In this day and age, we tend to be highly over-medicated. And, I think the doctors just want to prescribe us pills for everything rather than not only trying to get to the root cause of the problem, but searching for healthier alternative ways to heal us. With me today is Adam Weber. He is the author of Meditation, Not Medication, and he is going to definitely share some of his insights and research into how we can heal ourselves using meditation. So, Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much, Tracy.
Well, I'm excited and grateful to have you here because, like we were talking just before we started recording, this is such an important topic because we are such an over-medicated society, especially here in the U.S.
Yeah, without a doubt, we are.
So, let's start with a little bit about your journey and how you kind of stumbled on this topic.
Well, it was many years ago. I was working in corporate America in New York City. And it was a really stressful time. Now, I've spent over 2 decades in the corporate world in New York City, in commercial real estate. And I was always getting stressed out. It had a trickle-down effect at home with my wife, with my kids, and with friends and just living in general. And so I had learned to meditate, but never really took it so seriously. And then I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a progressive form of it. And while I do take certain medications, I'm not a big medicine guy. I'm the son of a doctor and a nurse, grandson, nephew, all that. And it seemed like every time I burped, farted, or sneezed, I'd be given a pill. Yeah, I know that second word really gets people. But I really started using meditation more for stress relief, use it today, teach it, work with others on it. And then I had the opportunity to write Meditation, Not Medicine. And I flew down to see the publisher down in Texas and ended up publishing the book in early 2020. Or about mid-2020. And it really trickled into 2021, where it really gained, more than I thought, a lot of acceptance, because it turns out, and I knew this, but not as much, that there were too many people being over-medicated, given too much medicine. So Meditation, Not Medicine was born. There's a course because my proprietary method is called Easy to Meditate, because I'm a kid from Long Island in New York City. And for me, using a lot of the traditional, what people thought of as traditional Far Eastern types of way of doing things and chants and mantras were not something that interested me, not something I wanted anything to do with. And frankly, I didn't find a lot of acceptance to whatever. Yes, there is some acceptance to the Far East mindset, but I didn't find a lot of acceptance with the Far East mindset. So I needed to change things up and create something for people that were more like me.
So, I laughed when you mentioned, how often you were given a pill, because I grew up with a grandmother who was a nurse. And so I totally get the old ways of doing things. Got a sniffle, here's a pill, And even nowadays, it's still like that. I know with my kids, when they were in school, every time they were out sick, if they had the slightest sniffles, the school wanted them to go to the doctor and get a doctor's note. And I'm like, I don't take my kids to the doctor for everything. There's there's nothing that they can do other than tell me to give them some over-the-counter medication, which if they need it, that's what I'm doing anyway. But otherwise, we just typically let it run its course in here. And so, yeah, our society everywhere we're just too dependent on pharmaceuticals and manufactured ways to get by.
Yeah, during COVID in particular, look, I like I said, I understand that there's the need for medication, and I do, and I do understand not everybody's the same, and not everybody can just sit down and meditate or is willing to. I think the bigger reason is people aren't willing to give it a try. It's something they don't know a lot about. It's not something that's part of their life. And during COVID in particular, even my kids, when they get a cold in the middle of the winter or the sniffles, they were required to go to the doctor. And in some cases, they couldn't see the doctor that day or even the next day, and had to take 2-3 days off from school. So when I was a kid, I was given a pill. And for a long time, my kids could still go to school, and you could tell the teacher, knowing that it was just a cold or it was something not severe. Times have changed, and that's made things even more stressful for parents, for students, for teachers, for the world in general.
Yes, absolutely. And this topic really, I don't think could come any timelier, given the fact that we are recording on the day that Russia invaded the Ukraine. And so now the whole world is like tense and stressed, going, okay, now what's going to happen? And so those tensions and the stress levels are going to go high. And what that does is creates havoc in our bodies. So then we end up sick. We end up with autoimmune disorders. We, end up with various things. And what do? We go to the doctor. And what does the doctor do? He gives us pills, and those pills have side effects. So then we get more pills to counteract those side effects. And it's just a vicious circle where, when in reality, many times we can just calm ourselves and, through meditation, as opposed to having to use, medicine for everything. And like you, I'm not opposed to medications. I take medications for certain things. I take it for depression. But I also don't take medicine just for the sake of taking medicine, just because my doctor says it's something I should take. So let's talk about meditation, because like you said, so many people don't want to do it because they don't understand it. They think that it's, I've got to go sit for hours with my eyes closed, chanting Om, Om over and over again. And that's not really what it is.
Not at all. And in fact, the way I teach it, and easy to meditate, is that you can do it in minutes a day. And I find myself often meditating more than once a day. Typically in the morning, I have a longer practice. But then as I find out through the day, if something's going wrong or something's happened, I may need to take 5 or 10 minutes, or it's even been multiple times. Because it just gets to be so stressful, the day. And it's, again, you don't want to take pills. I'm not somebody who drinks. I'm not a believer. Now, look, there are people who drink, but I'm not a believer in using drinking for stress relief, using drinking for anxiety. So I utilize a different approach, and I tell people to each their own. We're all a little bit different. So do what, you want to do, but that's not what I recommend. Again, I recommend, it's using meditation, not medicine, for stress relief.
Right. I'm with you there. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I don't believe in any of that. But yes, to each their own. So, for me, I have always had a really hard time with quieting the mind. And so what I have learned when I go in to meditate is that I know that I have maybe a 5-minute window where I can quiet myself long enough to, just really just clear my mind, clear everything, and just kind of get into it. And that works for me. So with everybody being different, we have to find what works for us.
I agree 100%. We need to find what works for us. And again, there are some people that are going to need to take medications, but I'm personally not one of them when it comes to stress relief. Yeah. Yes, I'll go to the gym. Yes, I might do yoga, which was something I found in the last few years, which I never thought I would enjoy doing, but I did. And but it turns out, finding out things that are healthy, that don't require you taking a chemical pill, something like that, it's important.
Absolutely. And, listeners, we're not saying go medicate and stop all your medications. Absolutely not. Definitely before you stop any medications or change your medications, you need to talk to your healthcare professional. We are not saying that at all. But you may experience, if you add meditation to your daily routine, that some of those medications will no longer be needed, and you can talk to your doctor about coming off of them.
I agree with you 100%. Again, and one of the reasons I found in talking to people is they didn't know they had the alternative. Unfortunately, it's an old way of doctoring. And my doctors that I talk to at the city and the hospital are at the hospital in the city are very much in line with me because, look, it's just too much for a lot of people for the drugs. It's also, I know one of the crises we face as a society is prescription drugs and people being able to afford them and other things when they are needed. I'm not saying you should, replace a prescription drug for sickness with meditation, but what I can tell you is that it's important that for stress that you give meditation a try and not strictly rely on a medicine, plain and simple.
Absolutely.
And that was the reason behind me writing Meditation, Not Medicine. To tell people there is an alternative. There is another way.
Absolutely. So when you are teaching people about meditation, how do you go about it? Because I know for so many, some of the things that I hear are, I can't sit still for that long. I can't quiet my mind for very long. I don't know what to do, really. So how do you start, with somebody who just says, okay, I'm going to give this a try. What do I do?
I tell people to start with minutes a day. The majority of people that learn the easy to meditate technique do not do it in person. And in fact, there are still people who are now in 2022 are a little bit scared to go out in public or scared to be around other people. And so, but this, again, it's a technique you don't need a specialized class for. There's certain things you don't need. Easy to meditate is called easy to meditate for a reason, because frankly, it's easy. It's not something that requires a big investment of time, a big investment of resources. It's just a matter of taking a seat, even if it's just for minutes a day, which is why I mentioned I'll meditate first thing in the morning, but then in the afternoon, maybe when I need it, I just do it for minutes a day. Yes, you can pick and choose how long you want to do it. But it's up to everybody else. You find what works for you.
Absolutely. I find that if I try to do it in the morning, that's when it's a fail for me, because I'm such a morning person that like as soon as I get up, I am go, go, go. I'm working. My brain is on and we're in total work mode. So for me to try and meditate first thing in the morning is just, it doesn't work. But in the afternoons, when I hit my wall where, okay, my brain is done braining for the day, that's the perfect time for me to go ahead. Okay, let's quiet down. Let's decompress. Let's de-stress. So it's just a matter of trial and error for many people to figure out the best method. So let's talk about posture and positioning. Do you sit in a chair? Do you sit on the floor on a pillow? Can you lay down? What do you recommend?
I suggest for people to sit down. The reason is you're less likely to fall asleep. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, falling asleep, but it's preferable that that you're awake and that you're not looking to go to sleep.
Right. Kind of defeats the purpose a little bit.
Yeah. Yes, I have even used it when I've had really rough days or really rough times falling asleep as an add-on, where I've already meditated through the day, but it's not something that I strongly suggest. Sure. I tell people and again, then another reason is there's a lot of people out there taking aids to help them get to sleep at night. And if you can quiet your mind, if you can quiet your body, utilizing meditation is much better than utilizing, again, medicine. So,
yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts around guided meditations?
I've utilized guided meditations before, and in my teaching, I've utilized guided meditations, and it's really just a matter of teaching people to help what you would call get them in the groove, get them going, making it easy for people versus difficult.
Gotcha. I like to use guided meditations because I don't have the ability to visualize. I don't have the ability to, people can picture these, whatever it is that they're wanting to picture. So, their happy place, this big, beautiful house, or, the beach, and they can literally see all the details of it. I can't see any of that. I think it, but I can't see it. So for me, guided meditations, depending on what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, help me in that area, since I can't just go in and start visualizing things.
Yeah, no, I utilize visualizations personally a little bit, maybe not as much as I should. And you can calm your mind if you can visualize yourself relaxing, if you can visualize yourself away from the fray, away from work, away from a family situation that gets stressful, and utilize it with meditation. I really think you get the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. So, any final thoughts or tips that we need to know so that we can jump in and start meditating? I mean, how important is like breath work?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because, I was, before we got on the phone today, I was actually talking to somebody about breath work. People don't utilize the breath as much as they should. It's really, it's natural for all of us to breathe. And it's a tool, breathing in through our nose, breathing out through our mouth. It helps us get calm. It helps us get centered. It helps us get relaxed. It helps us get oxygen, which is important. A lot of times, you may have come from a very stressful situation where you're breathing very heavily. And if you can learn to breathe correctly, you can make a lot more out of your breath than you would understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's different variations of breath work. Again, it's a matter of researching and finding the one that works best for you, or the one that works best for whatever situation you're in. Um, I find for me, focusing on my breathing when I'm trying to calm my mind actually calms my mind, because then I'm not thinking, I'm focused on my breath. And so my mind gets clear. But also when I get into moments of very heightened stress or anxiety, just focusing on some deep breathing for even a minute or two, it makes a major, major change.
An amazing change, what it does for you. And people need to understand it's important to utilize the breath. It's also important to utilize the breath as part of meditation, because it's really what gets you in that place to meditate and calming down, which is something a lot of us really don't do.
Absolutely. Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today, and just sharing some of your wisdom and insight around using meditation. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Listeners, as you know, I will have all of Adam's contact information, the link to his book, everything in the show notes. Just head over to releasingtraumapodcast.com and pull up Adam's episode, and it will all be there nice and neat and bundled for you. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you're listening from your favorite podcast app, be sure to give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, whatever the case may be. We'll talk to you in the next show. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure you hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a show. Be sure to check us out on our new socials on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.